Okay, so up till now, we've looked at a few of the different Adobe suite of products, but it occurred to me that some of you might not be familiar with what all of the Adobe product line does. So before we go on and look at any other applications, I thought it might be a good idea to take a look at the overall suite and talk about what each application does so you know which application to use for what jobs. All right, so when I open up my applications here, all the Adobe stuff is at the top because I've got it sorted alphabetically. So if we take a look here, the first is Adobe Acrobat DC. Now, Acrobat allows you to open any, Acrobat Reader allows you to open any Acrobat document, which is any PDF document. But Adobe Acrobat DC is actually the full Acrobat program that allows you to create PDFs. We'll be talking a little bit about Acrobat and Acrobat Reader in another video that I'm going to post here in a little bit. Let's take a look at what the rest of them are. Adobe After Effects is a program that allows you to do video effects or add motion graphics and things like that to a video program. It's basically little visual effects and animations and things like that that you want to add to a pre-existing piece of video. Adobe Animate is the next one here, and that is what used to be known as Flash. So Adobe Animate is the new name for Flash. Flash was a program that was owned by Macromedia, and Adobe acquired it about 10 years ago. It allows for the creation of 2D animation. You're probably familiar with a lot of Flash animation. Most of the 2D animation you see on the web is done with Flash, as are a lot of popular games for mobile applications, like Angry Birds is just one example. But most casual games that you find on mobile platforms are usually done in Flash. Unfortunately, we don't have time to get into Flash in this particular course, but it's worth mentioning. Audition is basically Adobe's audio mixing program. So for if you're familiar with GarageBand, which is the popular Apple product, there are a whole bunch of there are lots and lots of mixing programs out there. Audition just happens to be Adobe's. We already talked about Adobe Bridge, which is an asset management system that allows you to organize your visual assets, usually photo images. Character Animator is something brand new. As you can see, it's still in beta. Basically, it's something that Adobe is trying out, allows you to create basic character animations. As I said, it's still in beta. We'll have to see if it continues to be something Adobe sticks with or not. Recently, Adobe has gone from being application software that you get from a disk to being cloud based. A subscription service. So the former version of Adobe was CS or Creative Suite, which you'll see here in some of these. I have some of the older CSs. The new version is CC, which stands for Creative Cloud. So the Adobe Creative Cloud folder contains shortcuts that allows you to access your Adobe applications via the web, and any stored documents you have on the web. Dreamweaver is one that we're going to be talking about later in this class. It's the other major textbook we have. It's for creating websites. Dreamweaver was also acquired by Adobe at the same time they got Flash from Macromedia. It was another one of the Macromedia suite of products. They have been supporting it for many years, and they were still supporting it at the time this class was planned, but they have recently abandoned support for it, which leaves us in a little dilemma with respect to this class. We'll learn a little bit about Dreamweaver, but I don't know if we want to go too deep into it because it is going to be replaced by another program. We'll talk a little bit about that soon. The Adobe Edge products, Adobe Edge Animate CC, Adobe Edge Code, and Adobe Edge Reflow, are basically all programs that work with Flash. Adobe Experience Design is another one that is still in beta. The idea of Adobe Experience Design is to have a mock-up program that allows designers to quickly mock up their ideas for tablet applications or mobile applications or desktop applications to show a client what something might look like without having to fully build something out. It's a rapid prototyping for the digital world. Adobe ExtendScript Toolkit is basically something that lets you work with ExtendScript, which is Adobe's version, sort of like Adobe's equivalent to JavaScript. We won't be talking about it too much in here. Adobe Extension Manager. Basically, we talked about how the various Adobe products can be extended with plugins and things like that. Adobe Camera Raw, for example, was once upon a time an extension to Photoshop. Now it's just a fully built-in feature. But you can really do all sorts of things by adding extensions to all of these products. And the way that you manage your extensions now is with the Adobe Extension Manager. As you can see, I have two versions of the Extension Manager on here. The Extension Manager for Creative Cloud and the Extension Manager for Creative Suite, because I have some of both products on here. Adobe Fireworks. Fireworks is another application that Adobe got when it merged with Macromedia and got Flash and Dreamweaver. Basically, at the time they got the big four that Macromedia had was Fireworks, Flash, Dreamweaver, and a vector graphics program called Freehand. They had tried to acquire Freehand back in the 90s, and the Federal Trade Commission said that they couldn't have it because they already owned Adobe Illustrator, another vector graphics program, and that they would then have a monopoly on the vector graphics market if they owned both of them. But 10 years later, in the mid-2000s, Macromedia, who had acquired Freehand, merged with Adobe, and Adobe got it anyway. You won't see Freehand anywhere in this list, and the reason is because Adobe stopped supporting it and it was discontinued. That is what will probably happen to Fireworks soon, and it's what may be happening to Dreamweaver as we speak. What Adobe usually likes to do is buy these things, grab some of their best features, incorporate it into their own products, and then discontinue using them. Or discontinue supporting them. So that's one of the reasons why we might not go as deeply into Dreamweaver as we had originally planned for this class. Flash Builder, of course, is for building things with Flash. Adobe Fuse CC is This is another one of their products it's not even in beta. It's just a preview right now. It is their first steps into the 3D animation world. It's a 3D character creation program, very simple right now, but it's Adobe's first steps in that direction. So we'll see if they continue to develop that or not. Adobe Illustrator is one of the big killer apps that Adobe has. It's part of the Trinity along with Acrobat and Photoshop for designers. The Illustrator is basically their vector graphics program. It incorporates some of the interface ideas that their big competitor Freehand had. When they acquired Freehand, they incorporated it into Illustrator. So if you need to do illustrations by hand, Adobe Illustrator is what you're looking for. InCopy was created to work with InDesign. Now, we've already talked about InDesign. InDesign was the layout program that allows you to create layouts for various digital application platforms like iPhone or an iPad or actual print layouts. We created last week a print layout in InDesign for a PDF brochure. That's a layout program, but at some point Adobe decided that it would be good if they had a text program to create their own to work in conjunction with InDesign. So basically, InCopy is a word processor. It is Adobe's version of something like Microsoft Word. So Adobe Lightroom, we've already talked about, another photographic assets management tool with some of the Adobe Camera Raw functionality built into it. Very good for photographers who don't want to get deep into Photoshop editing, but just want to organize their photos and do light retouching. We've already talked about it, so I'm going to move on. Adobe Media Encoder. Now, Adobe Media Encoder is a program that basically allows you to take audio video media and encode it in various different codecs. It would be the equivalent, Adobe's equivalent of Handbrake, if you're familiar with Handbrake, or Avid has a media encoder as well. This is Adobe's version. Adobe Muse is new. This is Adobe's web design program. And it looks like the plan is to stop using Dreamweaver in the future. They've already discontinued support for Dreamweaver and move forward with Adobe Muse. Because this all happened very recently, Adobe Muse CC 2017 was just released about a month ago, a little over a month ago. Because this is very new, we won't be able to get too deep into it, but I think we should have a basic introduction to it in this class, because there's no sense going very deep into Dreamweaver and then having it be obsolete or gone by the time you graduate. So we will talk a little bit about Adobe Muse in here in a future class. Adobe Photoshop, of course, you're all familiar with. We've already talked about it. Is the raster graphics program that Adobe has. Prelude and Premiere are Adobe's video editing software. Adobe Premiere Pro is very similar to Apple's Final Cut Pro. It was in many ways patterned off of Final Cut Pro. It's their professional editing product. have to turn off my alerts. Apparently, it's trivia night somewhere. Anyway, Adobe Premiere Pro is the professional editing software, and then Adobe Prelude is a quick editing, simplified editing, video editing program. So if Adobe Premiere Pro is like, say, Final Cut Pro, Adobe Prelude would be like iMovie. Okay, Adobe Scout CC is so new that I don't even know what it does. So I'm going to move on. And Adobe SpeedGrade is it is basically Adobe's color adjustment tool for video. So Adobe Camera Raw, if you remember, we adjusted the colors in photographs. SpeedGrade is the same thing for video. It's equivalent to DaVinci, or Apple has or had a product that was just called Color, I believe. Adobe SpeedGrade is color grading for video, Adobe version. So that's a quick introduction to the entire suite of Adobe products. We will be talking about Acrobat here this week.